India and China say that Doklam is history, a 73-day standoff between Indian and Chinese troops that ended in August last year. However, America believes otherwise. In fact, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, has said, and I quote, "We expect relations between India and China to remain tense and possibly to deteriorate further despite the negotiated settlement to their 3-month border standoff in August, elevating the risk of unintentional escalation." End quote. So the United States has said that it's not as convinced of reports that the standoff on Doklam between India and China is a thing of the past. This new statement by Dan Coats says that the United States is fearful that tensions will remain between India and China and that there's a possibility of a further deterioration of the relationship between the two countries. Now, this relates to the standoff between the two countries at the Tri-Junction area between India, China and Bhutan on the Doklam Plateau, sovereign territory of Bhutan, that China began road building exercises in. India came in at that point to the assistance of Bhutanese troops. Since then, there was a standoff between Indian and Chinese troops, something that lasted for 73 long days. However, the resolution came about in August of last year. America, though, believes that the standoff may be over, but the ripple effect of it is likely to stay for a while longer. In fact, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, has said, and I quote, "We expect relations between India and China to remain tense and possibly to deteriorate further, despite the negotiated settlement to their 3-month border standoff in August, elevating the risk of unintentional escalation." End quote. Ramesh Chandran, WION's senior correspondent, joining me on the phone line for more on that story. Ramesh, what do you make of this statement by the United States?
Well, Aisha, what Dan Coats, the chief of the Directorate of National Intelligence of the U.S., has said is more or less consistent with how Washington views its relationship with both Russia and China. Remember, the national security strategy unveiled by Trump in December, the National Defense Strategy unveiled by James Mattis recently, followed by the Nuclear Posture Review, all talk about Russia and China as quote-unquote rivals. Therefore, what Dan Coats has said is consistent with Washington's position vis-a-vis both these countries. What is new, however, Aisha, is that Washington expects or anticipates India-China relations to nosedive going forward, especially, to borrow the word used by Dan Coats, unintended miscalculation in the relationship, and that is significant from India's perspective because that speaks to how Washington perceives India-China relations going forward.
All right, we leave it at that, Ramesh. Thanks very much for joining us with that perspective.